What's up, guys? This is Vaughn the Journalist here, back again to give you guys another video, and this time we're going to be talking about the injury to Spencer Dinwiddie. As you guys know, the Brooklyn Nets guard Spencer Dinwiddie has been diagnosed with a partial torn ACL. The team announced on Monday he is scheduled to have surgery next week. Now, Dinwiddie was injured in the third quarter of Sunday night's game against the Charlotte Hornets when he drove against Bismack Biyombo and planted his left leg awkwardly. Dinwiddie was on the floor for a moment. My fault. Not left leg, right leg. Awkwardly, he was on the floor for a moment, grabbing his right knee, then hobbled on over to the sidelines. After being evaluated on the Nets bench for a few minutes, he went back into the locker room and ruled out for the rest of the game with what appears to be a right knee sprain. Further testing on Monday morning revealed that it was a partial tear. Dinwiddie is expected to miss an extended amount of time, and his ability to return this season will be dependent on his rehabilitation, sources says. Now, what does that mean for Spencer Dinwiddie partial ACL tear? What does that mean for him and the Brooklyn Nets? Let's consider the many implications on Dinwiddie's untimely injury, and we're going to talk about the options just in a few seconds. But before we get into that, make sure to subscribe to the channel, make sure to like some of the videos that's on this channel, man. I haven't been on due to the simple fact that one of my family members had COVID and pretty much had to tend to them. But in the meantime, I am back now. I'm going to try to put out some more videos in the due matter. And also, I've been putting out more of my activity more on Twitch.tv. So if you guys want to check me out, especially if I'm on my off days, it is more than likely I'm going to be live on Twitch.tv/VaughnTheGamer1. Make sure to check it out. It's always going to be below where I always have my social medias at for every time I do this video. So make sure to read it onto the content. I only missed 25 days so far, maybe 24, 26, I'm not sure, but I know I'm going to be back at least by a month. So guys, let's get into the video. Now, the Nets trade options is more than complicated at this time. The timing of Dinwiddie's injury is so problematic for the Nets right now for any possible trades that consolidates their roster. Now, along with Caris LeVert, Dinwiddie was an obvious candidate to be included in a package for a star guard because of the possibility he might leave as an unrestricted free agent next summer, which will leave more money on the table for a team that wants him and required for a trade. Now, Dinwiddie trade value is now limited now due to the simple fact that he is a potential free agency. Dinwiddie would have been one of the most valuable valuable players to the team that could have taken advantage of his modest current salary for a starting caliber point guard. Within Dinwiddie's likely being out for the season, that salary now becomes dead money to the Nets. It's still possible a team over the cap might want to acquire Dinwiddie in order to secure his bird rights to re-sign him next season, but that's not a certain thing. Because they have multiple reasonable contracts and all their draft picks are going forward, the Nets are still well positioned to put together a trade package for Harden if and when both sides decide to make a deal, or Beal if he does become available. However, the Nets will now have to give up more picks than usual due to the fact that Spencer Dinwiddie is now hurt. If Spencer Dinwiddie wasn't hurt, that trade or potential trade for James Harden or Bradley Beal would have potentially just been Caris LeVert, Spencer Dinwiddie, and probably 2 first rounds, and that would have been the trade from itself. Now the Nets are going to have to go deep into the future draft pick bag and throw out a lot of picks to those teams if they are such to acquire a third superstar for their team. So that's going to be a big part for the Brooklyn Nets, especially going forward. The opportunity that they had from when Spencer Dinwiddie was healthy compared to when he was, now injured is completely diminished compared to if you couldn't get James Harden or not. Now you have to throw more at that team to prevent or basically get a better deal than what you originally was going to present with Spencer Dinwiddie and Caris LeVert. Also with Bradley Beal, if he does become available, now they are completely still well positioned, but still missing that player that would have sweetened the deal a little bit more for them to acquire that third star. Now, Dinwiddie's player option isn't a big thing to the Nets, but it is a big thing towards him and how the Nets are potentially going to either move away from him or trade him or either keep him depending on the situation. Now, Dinwiddie will not have a full season to prove his worth due to the injury, due to the partial to ACL tear, before deciding on his $12.3 million player option deal for 2021-2022. Prior to the injury, Dinwiddie seemed like a lock to decline his option and tested free agency. At 28, healthy Dinwiddie would have been one of the top players in the market. Now, given how much money will be available next summer and how the crop of potential free agency would have been thinned by a series of extensions this season, I think it's a really good choice that Dinwiddie would have been a free agent by default, especially when healthy. But that is no longer a sure thing. Dinwiddie may need to demonstrate to potential suitors or other teams that his rehab is going well and he can bounce back from this partial ACL tear, since he is unable to return this season. If he is unable to return this season, because there's still a chance that he might return through all this, due to the part that is still a partial ACL tear and it's not a full-on ACL tear. So that's some good news for Dinwiddie, but again, it's all depending on his rehab and also how he bounced back from it. So we'll see as the season progresses. Now, the third and final thing for the Nets, especially with the Spencer Dinwiddie injury, is how their lineup changes are going to be going forward. Now, through Sunday, the Nets starting five with Dinwiddie, Irving in the backcourt, Joe Harris and Kevin Durant at the forward, and DeAndre Jordan at the center, had outscored opponents by a league best 32 points and 43 minutes of action per NBA Advanced Stats on NBA.com. Now, this is what Steve Nash had to say about his basically impact with Spencer Dinwiddie playing the two. He says he gives us a lot of versatility. There's a lot of gaps around Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, and he can fill a number of them. Whether he can create plays for them or whether he's spotting up, whether he is taking on a defensive assignment, is a joy to have a player like that with that much talent and versatility in our lineup. Now, here's Nash about Dinwiddie's injury as he is going forward with the season.
It's a gut punch. Earlier, I asked Steve Nash his reaction to the Spencer Dinwiddie news and how the team goes about filling that void.
Just deeply saddened for Spencer. It's just a tough break for him and for us. Obviously, he's a terrific player that is able to, fill multiple roles for us, and gives us a great athlete on top of that. So he'll be really missed by us, but more importantly, we all feel for Spence and just look forward to him getting healthy again and being back on the floor.
Now, taken away from that, Nash will now have to rebuild a starting five. You have to find out or if Nash is committed with the fact of Karis LeVert playing as a six-man role. Using LeVert as a primary scorer off the bench, heavy units have allowed Nash to play Durant and Irving together as much as possible. Again, Irving has yet to play without Durant in the starting lineup whatsoever or on the floor, and Durant has yet to basically play without Kyrie Irving on the floor. They have been basically together on the floor throughout this whole season. They have yet once split a minute away from each other. Now, besides LeVert, a very good option to basically fill in that spot from Dinwiddie will be potentially Landry Shamet. But in the simple fact of the matter, Shamet has been playing very poorly in terms of his shooting, but he does provide some solid defense for the team at the guard position. Now, if they wanted to add more size now, you can go for Taurean Prince. And if Nash want to keep his second unit intact by elevating one of the team's two best defensive specialists to the starting lineup, he will go now to either Bruce Brown or TLC or Timothy Luwawu-Cabarrot. If anybody from the Nets know, that's his name, TLC for nickname. I'm a Knicks fan, so as anyway, many options that the Nets have, none of them are as complete as Dinwiddie, and also not notable as far as a point guard. Although LeVert has been serving as a point guard with the second unit, the only person that comes to mind that can basically provide minutes at that point guard, but not as effective as LeVert and Dinwiddie, will be most likely Tyler Johnson or Chiozza, my fault. But I believe Tyler Johnson is not really that equipped, and LeVert is probably the most high efficient player that can basically man that point guard position as of right now, due to the simple fact that he's been given a lot of minutes playing there, and especially from last night's game against Memphis. So we'll see what Steve Nash has up his sleeve, especially with the absence now of Spencer Dinwiddie. Now, according to the ESPN writer Malika Andrews, Dinwiddie hasn't yet been ruled out for the season. However, a return from an ACL surgery so quickly would be unprecedented in recent NBA history. No player has returned from ACL tear in fewer than 11 months since J.J. Hickson in 2014. That includes former player Tony Roden in the Philadelphia 76ers, who was also diagnosed with a partial tear in 2015, and has other players such as Rajon Rondo in recent memory with the Boston Celtics in 2013, which he had a partial ACL tear that kept him out for nearly a full year. Now guys, that will be it for the video. For Von Jones here, but thank you guys for tuning into the video. If you liked the video, make sure to leave the like, spam that like button as much as possible. If you love the content that's here for Von Jones YouTube, make sure to subscribe. This is a really good video that I did for Spencer Dinwiddie and the Brooklyn Nets. If any Brooklyn Nets fan that's out there, listen, is going to get better, and you still have opportunities to make a trade for a third star if you want that. If you don't want that, you still have the depth to continue punching forward. Just know that is going to be a really tricky situation with Spencer Dinwiddie if he does accept his play option, and if he doesn't accept this play option. They have many options to go, but they have to see the options of currently through free agency or through trades, but it is going to be tricky for there on out. But guys, thank you guys for tuning in. This is Von Jones. I'm out. Peace.